I had never experienced sleep paralysis until a few months ago. I always felt lucky hearing other people's stories about it. Sounded terrifying, but my luck apparently ran out. I think it was because I was very stressed or anxious because I only experienced it a few times after that, then stopped. The worst part was the first time I experienced it. I fell asleep pretty quickly, but I have a habit of waking up at the same time every night to go to the bathroom. Tonight was no different, except when I woke up, I was very tired and decided to hold it and just go back to sleep. I tried to fall asleep again when I realized that I couldn't move. This had never happened before, so my heart started pounding, and that's when I heard the door creak open. I was lying on my side with the blanket mostly covering my face, so I couldn't see anything. I remember feeling very scared and fearful. Then I heard voices. 2 male voices talking on the other side of my bed. I tried to scream for help to my roommate, but I couldn't. I couldn't speak at all, which made me even more anxious, and my heart beat faster. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The people in my room started moving towards my bed. I could hear them talking to each other, but couldn't understand what they were saying. I kept my eyes closed and hoped they would think I was asleep and just take whatever they were looking for, and then leave. My only thought was that they were burglars. Everything felt so real, and I even wondered why my dog didn't bark, or how I didn't hear anything downstairs. I'm a light sleeper after all. I kept my eyes closed and tried to stay calm, but one of them felt so close. I could hear him breathing right next to me. Then he whispered as if he was talking to me. I heard them leave, and then the door slammed shut loudly. I still couldn't move, so I just lay there until I fell asleep. What's even weirder, that night I dreamt that I woke up after they left to check if they stole my money, and they did. I dreamt that I woke up my roommate and told her everything. Checked the video camera and saw 2 men enter my room and approach me. Then we went downstairs to ask our other roommate if they saw anything. But when we went down, they had already called the police because the living room TV was missing and everything was a mess. I had never experienced such vivid dreams, and the fact that the dream continued right where my sleep paralysis ended, it was even weirder. Of course, the next morning when I woke up, I checked if everything was still there, and it was. Nothing was caught on the video camera, but I swear it felt so real, and I'm sure I was awake. It was the weirdest experience of my life. After that night, I experienced a few moments where I couldn't move or breathe. I heard the door open or a door in a different room close. I always sleep on my side, so I never saw figures like many other people do. So in that regard, I'm lucky. But experiencing auditory hallucinations at night is almost more terrifying because you can't see what's happening. You just have to listen and hope that whatever it is isn't really there, or else you might not be as lucky as I am. I've experienced sleep paralysis for as long as I can remember, because it happens often. I thought it was normal and harmless, and my parents reassured me that I never experienced hallucinations or anything. I would just randomly wake up in the middle of the night and only be able to open my eyes and look around. It would always feel a little strange because I wanted to pull the blanket over my head to hide, but couldn't. There's one experience I had that really scared me, and I still think about it to this day. I was 11 years old at the time, and it was a school night after a fun weekend. At around 9, my parents told me to get ready for bed and turn off all the lights as I felt comfortable holding my stuffed toy between my arms. Then, like any other night, I fell asleep. I never knew why my brain would wake me up in the middle of the night, leaving me paralyzed and aware. But even though it sounds silly, the common reason seems to be that there's no reason at all. But tonight, when I woke up, something felt different. I was more worried than usual within just a few seconds of waking up. Opening my eyes, I heard movement beneath me from below. I couldn't tell what time it was now, but I knew my dad sometimes stayed up late, so I tried to calm myself down. But the movement became clearer and showed soft footsteps, climbing the stairs very slowly, even as the sound of footsteps sounded faint. Son, I know the difference between someone casually walking up the stairs and someone walking up the stairs calmly and carefully. I started to panic a little in my mind, even though I was still trying to silence my thoughts when the footsteps approached my bedroom door and stopped. Now, my parents always warned me that hallucinations are a common side effect of sleep paralysis, and although I hadn't experienced it before, I'm sure they described it as something like a vivid nightmare. But when it happened, I had to keep telling myself that this wasn't real and it would soon be over just like any other dream. So lying motionless, I closed my eyes and repeated in my head that this was just a dream and nothing was real. After a minute, I opened my eyes again and felt relieved because I was sure the bad dream was over, until my bedroom door slowly creaked open. I practically held my breath in fear as I saw something that looked like a man enter my room. Slowly, I closed my eyes again. Hoping this terrifying nightmare would end soon, I listened to soft footsteps on the wooden floor approaching the side of my bed. I was too scared to even open my eyes and kept repeating in my head that this was just a dream, and I needed to wake up. I felt the man breathing on my shoulder as my stuffed toy was taken from my side. Then the footsteps disappeared at the end of the room. I slightly opened my eyes, still terrified, and caught a glimpse of the man walking away with my stuffed toy, closing the door calmly. Even then, I still couldn't move. I just closed my eyes again and tried to control my emotions, but it was hard. Every bad thought crossed my mind all at once. I don't even remember falling back asleep when I woke up in the morning, even though I was very tired. More comfortable, I sat up and looked around, making sure this wasn't a weird dream anymore. Everything seemed normal until I looked beside me. The stuffed toy wasn't there. All the emotions suddenly overwhelmed me again, and I started crying as I ran to my parents' room and woke them up. They didn't wake up. It seemed like I wasn't too surprised when I explained to myself that I expected something like this to happen. My dad woke up and came to my room to help me look for my stuffed toy. He assumed I just misplaced it, and the toy would turn up quickly as usual. But oddly enough, it didn't. Still not worried at all. My dad started searching all over the house. He knew how much the stuffed toy meant to me, and maybe just wanted to make me feel better about my bad dream, but we still couldn't find it. In fact, we never found it. This happened one night as usual. I was still just a kid and had just started middle school at the time. My parents had already sent me to bed and then went to sleep in their room on the other side of the house. Although I was supposed to sleep, I had a presentation due the next day, and I needed to memorize its words. Of course, as a kid, I wasn't fully prepared. I cared about my grades like my parents did, but procrastination was something I dealt with. I sat on my bed reading the script repeatedly, trying my best to memorize it as quickly as possible. After a while, even though it was late, I knew I needed to sleep. I pushed my schoolwork aside from the bed and lay under the covers, closing my eyes. I felt confident with the first part of the presentation, but the last part I could barely remember and worried about losing grip on it overnight. So, as I lay there, I began repeating the words in my mind, the final part of my presentation. I lost track of time, not opening my eyes once during what seemed like 20 or 30 minutes, repeating in my mind. Now feeling more confident in myself, I thought I could finally sleep. I kept delaying in the same position for a few more minutes before I was startled by a soft sound right in front of my bed, near the wardrobe. I quickly opened my eyes, staring straight down the side of the bed, the room pitch black. But in the darkness, I could see a figure standing near my wardrobe. I couldn't see its features, but it was tall and standing still. Immediately upon seeing this, my heart raced, and I tried to scream as loudly as I could, but my mouth wouldn't move. I tried to get up and run, but my body couldn't move either. It felt like I was trapped inside a shell trying to push it out, but nothing worked. The more I struggled inside, the more it felt like a heavy burden sitting on my chest, making it difficult for me to breathe. I couldn't even open my mouth. All I could do was look at the figure in front of me. I was truly surprised, never having experienced anything like this before. I thought maybe I was in a nightmare, but everything was too real. I knew I wasn't asleep. Then I started to wonder if I was paralyzed, if I would be like this forever. But these thoughts were replaced by the immediate danger of the figure in front of me. After a minute of frightening anxiety, the figure began to move slowly, walking to the end of my bed. As it approached, I could hear my heart beating fast and blood flowing through me very intensely. I tried every way to move, scream, and run, but I was frozen. As it reached the bed, I still couldn't see its face. I could feel its presence, but like a dark shadow covering all its features. I wanted to cry or wake up or anything to end this horrible night. But after standing there for a few more seconds, it put its long arms on the bed and began crawling towards me. Slowly moving over my body with the shadow still covering its face before stopping right above my head. My eyes widened and fear struck me. One long second of total silence passed when the figure quickly turned its face right in front of my eyes, screaming with its wide open mouth and staring into my eyes. Then in an instant, it disappeared, vanished just like that. The screams, the figure, everything fell silent and disappeared. As I lay there, shocked and terrorized, I felt my hands trembling, then as if it never happened, I could move again. I leaned forward and looked around in panic, still unsure of the experience I had just been through. As a child, I began to wonder if the demon was real, and that's what I had just seen. I wondered if what I had just experienced was really there, or if it was all just hallucinations. When this happened, it was the late 1980s, so I couldn't look it up and see what it was. Plus, I was too scared to tell anyone about it, thinking they might send me to a mental hospital or something. So I didn't know what happened that night for 15 years. Not until I was driving home from work one day and listening to the radio that I finally found out the truth. The host was talking about his experience on a podcast-like show, and his description was similar to mine. The radio show was still going on when I reached my house, so I stayed in the car listening carefully. He kept explaining his scary experience until finally someone asked him what really happened. After a pause, he finally answered the question I'd been searching for all this time, and said that it was something terrible and frightening called sleep paralysis.